Open your eyes.
When Breath of the Wild was announced, everyone was super excited. Now that the game is out, everyone praises it. I've not yet had a chance to play this game, but today we're going to compile both my videos so that I can give you guys my top 10 Zelda games list all in one place without watching two separate videos. Also, that means I replaced the original intro and outro to the video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy it. Random shit like Zelda. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, follows in true Nintendo fashion by separating itself drastically from the original and trying many new things. However, in this case, it did not work out too well for the developers. Many people did not like the side-scrolling design of the levels and found the difficulty curve to be way too unbalanced. And you know what? I can't really blame them. However, this game is fun once you get past the beginning, which can be brutally difficult. However, the game is incredibly cryptic like the original game, and without Google, this game will tear you apart. However, once you know where everything is and you know all of its little secrets, the game becomes very easy and kind of opens up. It's not too much trouble to make your way through the game once you know what you're doing. This game introduced many things to the Zelda series, such as a magic meter which would be used constantly in the series. It introduced enemies that would reappear, and it was the first game to introduce RPG elements into the Zelda series. And although the Zelda series has not used the same kind of RPG elements as thick as this one, they have been used multiple times in the series. As many issues as this game has, it is beloved and it is truly a masterpiece as well. Just don't expect to have the same kind of magic with this game as you have with the others. This one might be pure nostalgia, but Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, is in my top 10. It is the original. It was released in 1987, and the game gained such a following, such a explosive reception that it spawned every single game that we know and love today. It created a craze. It is The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda is a game that is very open world and allows you to go in any direction you want, and actually has very little to no hand-holding at all. The game has a difficulty that is hard to grasp for many gamers today, and it has a very cryptic nature that back in the day when there was no Google was very hard for us to figure out. Although growing up we learned a lot by talking with our friends who may have also had the games. I was a little late to this one as I was born in 1989, but I have heard many stories, and I have had to ask family members for help who remember the game when it first came out. I remember playing this with my grandmother and having an amazing time. This game is truly great, and so is all of its sequels in one way or another. And although not all Zelda games are created equally, I do not believe that there is a bad one. This game, once you figured it out, is incredibly fun to run through multiple times over and try different dungeons in different orders, but it is not a game that is good for beginners to start with. I would suggest something else, like Ocarina of Time or A Link to the Past. The Legend of Zelda for the NES is a masterpiece, and I believe everyone should at least give this game a try. Ooh, I remember the hype behind this one. When Twilight Princess was announced, everyone was excited. It was a nitty-gritty realization of Zelda. A lot of people were disappointed with the direction that Wind Waker had taken the series, with its more cartoonish-like visuals. And many were crying out for a realistic styled Zelda. In comes Twilight Princess. Developed and released in 2006, Twilight Princess was what many fans of the series had been waiting and hoping for. 4, the game introduced a new wolf mechanic where Link would turn into a wolf, and the wolf would have unique abilities. However, the game in reality suffered from the overuse of the wolf feature at the very start of the game. The beginning of the game has a long-winded tutorial that takes a very long time to get through, and many people found this to be hand-holding and unnecessary, and it really hurt the game's replayability. However, I will say that the majority of the game is incredibly well made, and once you get past this initial startup, the game picks up in pace. However, the game world is massive and huge in size. However, it's not very dense in content. There's not very much to do in the game, and it's easy to find everything. Everything is spread apart pretty far away, and you find yourself basically riding through many different wastelands that are not interconnected in any way. The story of this game is incredible, and Midna is the best guide character in the entire series in my personal opinion. However, the many flaws of this game prevents it from being my number one. This game was the number one selling Zelda game until Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, breaking the record and becoming the best selling Zelda game ever. Ah, what the f do you mean Skyward Sword? Is probably what a lot of you are thinking right now. But honestly, I truly enjoyed this game from the beginning to the very end of it. It was an amazing game, has an amazing story, and the control scheme works incredibly well. Although I wish I could replay through it with a standard buttons layout, I do not condemn the game simply because it is a motion control game. I find this game to have elaborate puzzles, and the entire world made you really think around the obstacles in your way and the environments around you to really push through and continue. One thing that I think everyone can agree with is this game has a fantastic composition and also has a beautiful art style and a wonderful story. However, the linearity of this game really does hold it back, and I will never deny that. Although I do think the control scheme is not something that holds it back. I believe that many people who struggled with it just struggled with grasping the concept of the control scheme. The first time I played through the game, I only had to recalibrate one time during the entire playthrough, and on subsequent playthroughs I've been able to play through it without having to recalibrate my Wii Remote Plus at all. I do wonder if having the dongle has a different effect, if it affects the calibration of it differently, if perhaps the one with the built-in Motion Plus stays calibrated easier, but I will never know. But I do know one thing: the game has a fantastic story, and despite its flaws for being too linear and reusing a boss battle way too many times, it is a beautiful representation of Zelda, and I believe it is a game that is often panned for many things that are, in my opinion, things that should not be bitched about. To each their own, we all have our own opinion, but Skyward Sword does make my list for my top 10 favorite Zelda games. Majora's Mask was met with mixed critical reception when it released in 2000. It had a radically different kind of gameplay style to previous Zeldas in the series, where most Zeldas had a very open world and allowed you to complete dungeons in a particular order. Majora's Mask put a time element into it. No longer were you left to your own free time to take your time and figure things out. Now you had a time limit. You had 72 hours to figure out how to solve everybody's problem realms and how to free the giants to stop the moon that was looming above everybody consistently. The game was a challenge to Eiji Aonuma, who believed he could create a new Zelda game within a year using the assets from the previous game, Ocarina of Time. He proved this, and the game was released early in 2000. Many people believe this to be a better game than Ocarina of Time. However, I personally disagree with this analysis. I do find the game incredibly fun, and its time mechanic is stressful and intense and really gives people a sense of the doom that foreshadows. This game may not be thick in dungeons, but the game certainly is thick in side quests. This game has more side quests than most other Zelda games in the series, and as such, if you really take your time with the game, you will spend hours upon hours trying to complete all of the various tasks around town to gain all of the masks. This is definitely a game you do not want to pass up. This is the 3DS remake version that you see on screen. When it was unveiled that there was going to be a new Zelda game for the GameCube, everyone lost their shit. Everyone was excited until the game was actually revealed. A lot of people did not like the art direction that the Wind Waker had taken. However, the game still is a Zelda game at its very core, and as such, it is one of the best games ever made, and I believe that it gets a lot of hate that it does not deserve. In recent years, the game has been loved for all of its wacky animation and how Link will actually pay attention to the surroundings around him, and it has a lot of personality because of the art style that they chose. This would have not been possible if they had chose a more realistic art style, because it would have slowed down the hardware that it was running on. Public opinion about this game has changed radically, and a lot of people love it and hold it above other Zeldas. Myself included, I find this game to be one of the best 3D Zeldas, although not my favorite, and this is a game that truly holds up today. If you play this game in Dolphin Emulator and you upscale it, it will look very, very close to what the Wind Waker HD provided us when it was released for the Wii U. There is nobody on the face of this earth that can tell me this game is overrated or isn't any good. The dungeon design is fantastic. The story, mesmerizing. You actually get to see Ganondorf in a light that he never was portrayed in before. His intentions are no longer simply that he is an evil ruler that wants to take over everything and control everything. No, you get to see a softer side of him. A side that we never thought we would see out of a Zelda game. No longer is the bad guy simply a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. He has plot, depth, and a personality, and you start to wonder what his true intentions are by the end of the game. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker is my number 5 best Zelda game of all time. The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap was released and made by Capcom and released for the Game Boy Advance. This game really changed a lot, and it introduced a lot of new mechanics that were unique to the series at the time. This was not the first time Capcom had made a Zelda game, because they had made the Oracle games previously on the Game Boy Color. It was clear that Nintendo trusted Capcom with their franchise, and they had every reason to. This game is fantastic. It is beautiful, it has amazing music, and the introduction of the Minish Cap is truly inspiring. Mario is not the first one to have a magical speaking hat. Now, the game was the last game that Capcom would make in the Zelda franchise, although Nintendo and Capcom have maintained a beautiful relationship over the years, so who knows, maybe Nintendo will allow them to make another 2D Zelda, and I believe most Zelda fans would welcome that with wide arms. Now, the game has a pretty decent length, and it gives you a magical feeling just like the other Zelda games. The story is deep, the plot revolves around Link and Zelda, and unlike most Zelda games, it actually shows them as friends before the thread of the world ending ever became a thing. You must find the Minish, which are miniature people who will restore your sword, also known as the Pikuri. If anybody overlooked this game and didn't play it, you severely missed out, and you should go play the game immediately. This game is truly amazing. This shows how Nintendo can take a lot from third-party developers, and they can give their best to the franchises that we have grown to love year after year, entry after entry. Please play this game. When I saw at E3 2013 that Nintendo was creating a new Zelda game and that it was going to be based in the same Hyrule that A Link to the Past was in, I lost it. I was so excited for this game and I couldn't wait for the game to release. I had to wait a year for the game to come out, but it was well worth it, and this game truly is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. With that said, I want to explain what they changed. They made the game less linear and gave you the opportunity to rent or own all of the items in the game at the very beginning, which meant that you could complete the dungeons in any order that you wanted to. And this was revolutionary for the Zelda series at the time, because although the earlier Zelda games would allow you to complete the dungeons out of order, many of those dungeons required items that you had to go into other dungeons to get before you could complete those dungeons. So technically the game had some linearity in it because of the items. But this game took care of that by using a rental service. Some people loved it, some people didn't. I personally am a fan of it, and I really appreciate the ability to upgrade all of your weapons and items by collecting Mayas throughout the dark and light worlds. Oh, my bad, did I say dark world? I meant Lorule, which is the name of the alternate world in this game. This game is absolutely fantastic, and anybody who has not played it, it is well worth getting a 3DS just to play this game. The 3D in this game is phenomenal, and the gameplay is just as good. When it released in 1998, Ocarina of Time was a massive success. It changed the way people looked at 3D gaming, and it really changed the way people looked at Zelda. For the first time ever, you were seeing Zelda in 3D. You were seeing the strategies and the puzzles that made the older games so appealing and so mysterious, being shown in full 3D. This game introduced a mechanic that is still used in video games today, known as the Z targeting system. Every game that comes out these days seems to use some kind of targeting mechanic, and it all stems from the creation of it within this game. The game uses the C button so that you're not limited to just one item button, but you have three. The sword is dedicated to the B button. The A button is dedicated to all of the normal actions. The puzzles and strategy in this game are unique and were new to the franchise and the entire game industry at the time. Although the game's graphics haven't aged very well, the 3DS remake in 2011 really sharpened the visuals and brought the game to a next-gen kind of level. One can only hope that they would port this to the Switch and upgrade its textures to have full 1080p visuals. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time had become the best-selling Zelda at its time until it was broken by Twilight Princess in 2006. For this reason, many people find Ocarina of Time to be their favorite Zelda and possibly the best game ever made. Released in 1990 for the Super Famicom as The Legend of Zelda, The Triforce of the Gods, and later in 1992 for the Super Nintendo as The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is an epic evolution of the Zelda franchise. It introduced so many tropes that are used in the games up to this day. It introduced many items. It introduced flute, which looked just like the ocarina. It introduced a stronger narrative, and it used atmosphere to really pervade this sense of doom that overlooked the world. The game also had this sense that the game was complete a third of the way through, and when you realize that you had just really began your adventure, it really has a unique feeling that cannot be overstated at all. Games like Ocarina of Time took many different things from A Link to the Past, such as having multiple worlds. Whereas Ocarina of Time was time traveling, this one was going between dimensions, between a destroyed world known as the Dark World and a normal Hyrule, which was the light world. This game has an incredible amount of dungeons and lots of content, lots of secrets, and the world is incredibly dense with things to find. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is my #1 favorite Zelda game of all time because it is one that I can go back to over and over again and always find an enjoyment every time I play. It is the first Zelda game I remember playing, and it deserves all of the high praise that it's ever gotten. To anybody who has not played this game, you absolutely need to. This one and Ocarina of Time are two of the best games ever made, and I suggest everyone at least play through them at least once, and I can't say that about every game I play. If you are new to the Zelda series and you are unsure if you would even enjoy the series, Ocarina of Time is a great way to grasp the 3D games, and A Link to the Past is one of the absolute best 2D games in the series and a great way to introduce yourself to all of it. So if you guys enjoyed that top list, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your opinions on the top list. Also, look forward to new top lists and reviews weekly. I am upping my production so that I can bring more videos to you guys more often. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great day. Houdini out.